Hi guys. Imagine being the very last Eldar right before the fall, when everything your species built was seconds away from destruction. This is what it's like to witness the end of an entire civilization. There was no word for death in the language of my people. We did not need one. To die was a concept belonging to lesser beings, creatures of hunger, decay, and time. We, the Eldar, were not bound by such chains. Our spirits shone too brightly for mortality to touch us. We painted the stars with our laughter, sculpted dreams into matter, and filled the void with our songs. Every world we shaped bloomed beneath our will. Every act of creation was an act of worship. To ourselves, our cities floated upon oceans of light, suspended between real space and the shimmering edge of the immaterium. Towers curved like frozen symphonies, carved from living crystal that resonated with our emotions. The air itself carried fragrance, the scent of art, of perfection pursued without end. We lived not to survive, but to experience, to taste every sensation, to refine beauty until it became indistinguishable from sin. I was an artisan once. My hands knew the language of form and rhythm better than they knew my own flesh. I shaped statues that breathed sorrow, painted with pigments distilled from nebula dust and the tears of dying stars. In those days, I thought I understood the universe. I believed that art was a mirror through which we could glimpse divinity. We worshipped ourselves through creation, never noticing how our reflection darkened. There were no rulers among us, no gods to fear, no laws but desire. We had conquered need itself. Hunger, pain, disease, all were banished. The only remaining struggle was the pursuit of sensation, the endless refining of experience. Pleasure became philosophy. Emotion became empire. And through it all, we told ourselves we were evolving, that the universe bent to our will because it loved us for our brilliance each night. If night could be said to exist beneath the constant glow of our worlds, we celebrated the act of being. We gathered in great domes where light refracted like liquid glass, dancing across our skin. Music was not merely heard. It was felt, woven into our nerves, resonating with our souls. Some said they could see sound, taste color, or merge their spirits in shared rapture. We believed this was enlightenment. I remember a woman, a poet whose voice could still the storms that roamed the upper sky. She spoke once of silence, and we laughed. Silence is for the forgotten, we said. We are eternal sound. She smiled, and in her eyes I saw something I did not yet understand. The faint tremor of fear. In those days, fear was an art form too. We indulged in it, crafted illusions of danger and despair simply to feel the pulse of what we could no longer naturally feel. The thrill of peril without consequence. The taste of loss without cost. We believed that to simulate death was to conquer it, yet beneath the endless revelry, there was a hum, faint, almost imperceptible, like the vibration of a string pulled too tight. I felt it when I worked alone, shaping my sculptures in the half-light. It was in the air, in the rhythm of our songs. A tension beneath the beauty. Something waiting, but I ignored it, as we all did. For what could possibly threaten eternity? We told ourselves that creation was infinite, that our glory would never fade. We believed the stars themselves envied our perfection. We had become more than a race. We were the universe's dream made flesh. And yet, even dreams can rot. When I think back to those days, I no longer see brilliance. I see arrogance dressed in gold, laughter echoing over a chasm we refuse to see. The art, the music, the passion, all of it was a mask to hide a growing emptiness. We had turned our souls outward, seeking meaning and sensation, until we no longer remembered what it meant to feel with restraint. We believed we were eternal, but eternity, I would learn, is a lie, and the lie was of our own making. At first, I thought it was the echo of my own thoughts, the reverberation of solitude within the chambers of my mind. I had spent too long among statues and stillness, listening to the quiet pulse of the crystals that surrounded me. The Eldar mind is not meant for silence. We are creatures of song, of communion, of shared emotion that binds us into a single harmony. When that harmony falters, the void between our thoughts becomes unbearable. So when I first heard the voice, I welcomed it. It was not a voice in the way mortals would understand it. It had no sound, no shape, no source. It was an intimacy, a presence that pressed against the edges of my consciousness like the warmth of another breath. It did not speak words, but feelings. It touched the memory of pleasure, of the thrill of creation, of the shiver that runs through the soul when beauty is born. And it listened. That was what unnerved me most. It listened. I felt it respond to my every thought, subtle, patient, as if waiting for an invitation. It mirrored my emotions, reflected them back to me, amplifying what I desired until I could no longer tell where I ended and it began. When I sculpted, it guided my hands. When I dreamed, it painted the visions for me. And when I awoke, I longed to return to it. I remember one night, if such words still hold meaning in the eternal twilight of our craft world, when I stood before my latest creation, a figure of impossible grace, carved from crystal that pulsed like living flesh. I traced its curves, feeling the cold warmth beneath my fingers, and the whisper came again, closer this time. More, it said. Just that, more. The word was like silk dragged across a blade, delicate, beautiful, and wrong. I froze, staring at my hands. They trembled, though I could not say why. I had not eaten, had not rested. My thoughts were a haze of color and sound. Yet beneath the fever of inspiration, I sensed something vast and unseen pressing against reality. A presence watching through the veil. In our arrogance, we Eldar had forgotten how to fear the unseen. The warp was our servant, our mirror. We shaped it with thought, traveled its currents, built our palaces upon its tides. It was the raw material of our dreams. None among us could imagine it might one day dream us instead. Still, the voice persisted. Sometimes it came as laughter, distant, melodic, carried through the hum of the ship's spirit circuits. Other times it spoke through others, the singer who forgot her lyrics mid-performance, the warrior who hesitated before striking, the child who stared into nothingness and smiled. Each time, the same word echoed in my skull, a pulse I could no longer silence. More. I began to sculpt not with purpose, but compulsion. I created forms that no longer reflected beauty, but excess, emotion without restraint, sensation without meaning. Faces twisted in ecstasy and agony until the two became indistinguishable. My peers praised me, called it genius. They saw in my work the reflection of our age, a civilization beyond morality, beyond fear. But I knew something had changed. In the stillness of the night, I would catch my reflection in the crystal walls, and it would smile before I did. The voice grew bolder. It whispered my name, stretching it into something unfamiliar, something intimate. I felt it stir beneath my skin, within the rhythm of my heartbeat. It was in the air I breathed, in the light that touched my eyes. It was not a presence outside me, it was becoming me. Once, during meditation, I reached out into the immaterium to quiet my thoughts. Instead, I found an ocean. And in that ocean, something vast and luminous turned its gaze upon me. I cannot describe what I saw, only that in that gaze, I felt both adored and consumed. I awoke screaming, the scent of blood and perfume lingering in the air. My spirit stone flickered with crimson light, and for the briefest moment, I felt another heartbeat within it. Still, I told myself it was nothing, exhaustion, imagination. Perhaps the consequence of too much art, too little rest. After all, what harm could come from the whisper of the warp? We were its masters, but deep within me, beneath pride and denial, a truth began to bloom, cold and radiant as the stars we once shaped, that the voice was not speaking to me. It was calling me. At first, it was only a fracture in sleep, a hairline crack running through the serene tapestry of my dreams. For a people such as ours, dreams were sacred. They were not the disordered chaos that plagued lesser minds, but lucid gardens we shaped at will. Every Eldar slept within the harmony of spirit stones, the currents of the warp flowing gently through our souls like the tide caressing the shore. But something changed. The light in those dreams grew thin. The gardens of crystal began to wither. I would walk through corridors of glass that once sang with color, only to find them hollow, echoing with a silence that gnawed at the edges of thought. Faces I knew, friends, lovers, muses, turned to me with eyes made of ash, their smiles collapsing into dust. When I awoke, I could still taste the smoke. The others claimed not to dream at all. Our spirits are calm, they said. Perhaps you are overburdened with creation. They smiled, and for the first time I saw how hollow that smile was, stretched too wide, too practiced. Their eyes shimmered with brilliance, yes, but behind that brilliance there was vacancy, as if something vital had already been consumed. The nights that followed were worse. The dreams returned, but they were not mine anymore. They came unbidden, vivid beyond reason. I saw cities, our cities, collapsing inward as though devoured by invisible mouths. Towers that once touched the stars now sank into oceans of molten light. The skies screamed. I remember that sound more than the images themselves. The sound of souls tearing, like silk being ripped apart across eternity. I tried to paint what I saw, to give the vision shape, but the colors twisted beneath my hand. The pigments curdled into tones that did not belong in any natural spectrum, colors that hurt to look upon. My peers praised them, of course. You have captured something new, they said. Something primal. They did not see the truth, that I had captured something hungry. That was the word that haunted me, hunger. It had no mouth, no body, yet it fed. I felt it in the air of the craft world, subtle as a scent, constant as gravity. A vibration beneath every sound, a trembling in the psychic resonance of our people. I felt it most when we gathered in revelry, when our emotions rose like waves. The more we exulted, the stronger it grew, a shadow swelling just beyond the veil. I spoke of this to an old seer once, a woman whose eyes had seen the birth of constellations. Her robes shimmered with the runes of protection, each glowing faintly with the pulse of the immaterium. She listened to my words in silence, then touched my spirit stone with one long, thin finger. There are tides beneath all things, she murmured. And sometimes we mistake the rising of the sea for the beating of our own hearts. When I asked her what she meant, she simply smiled, not with comfort, but pity. Soon after, she vanished. They said she had departed on a journey of enlightenment, but I found her spirit trace flickering faintly within the psychic circuits of the ship, scattered, incomplete, as though something had fed upon her essence before she could pass into the infinity circuit. I began to watch the others. The laughter in the halls no longer sounded like joy, but mania. Dancers moved until their bones cracked. Musicians played until their fingers bled, yet none of them seemed to notice. It was as if pain itself had become invisible, or perhaps irrelevant. They were chasing something unseen, and in their pursuit, I saw devotion that bordered on worship. Once, during a grand gathering beneath the vaulted domes of the pleasure houses, I looked into the crowd and saw not Eldar faces but masks, flawless, glimmering, empty. I felt the hunger again, pressing against my mind like a lover's breath, and I knew that it was not theirs. It was something else, feeding through them, feeding through us all. The realization struck me like a wound. We were the banquet. The thought festered. I tried to silence it with meditation, with the repetition of sacred mantras, with art and song, but the whisper remained. More, it said, as it always had. More, it followed me even into waking life. I would walk through the crystalline corridors of the craft world and feel the walls pulse softly beneath my hands, as if alive. The ship's soul, once a gentle chorus, now hummed with a note of unease. The wraithbone, the living material that formed our home, throbbed like flesh. Sometimes I thought I could hear it breathing. I began to keep my distance from the gatherings, to hide within my workshop. Yet the dreams grew louder. They no longer came as visions of destruction, but desire. The kind that consumes without satisfaction. I felt it creeping into me, reshaping my thoughts. I wanted to create, not beauty, but indulgence. I wanted to feel, not joy, but surrender. It terrified me, and still I could not stop. One night, as I stared into the half-finished sculpture before me, the air itself seemed to split. From the cracks spilled not light, but shadow, vibrant, living, pulsing with rhythm. I smelled sweetness and decay intertwined, and from that scent I knew the truth. There was something vast beyond the veil, something that hungered for us, not for our bodies, but for what made us Eldar, our emotions, our passions, our brilliance. Every song we sang, every desire we indulged, every excess we celebrated, it had been feeding that hunger. We were building it, shaping it, nourishing it with our own perfection. I wanted to scream. I wanted to warn them. But what words could capture such horror? When I spoke, they laughed. "You have spent too long among your sculptures," they said. "You see monsters in the mirror because you've forgotten that the mirror is you." Perhaps they were right, and yet, that night, as I drifted into restless half-sleep, I felt the void shudder. Somewhere beyond the warp, something stirred. A newborn heartbeat echoed through eternity, slow, powerful, inevitable, and in its rhythm, I recognized the whisper that had haunted me for so long. It was not the voice of inspiration. It was the first breath of a god. They called us cowards, in the final age of our empire, when the laughter of our kin still echoed through the marble streets and the skies, shimmered with pleasure ships like drifting jewels. To leave was the gravest sin. To doubt the perfection of the Eldar was heresy. Yet I could no longer breathe beneath the weight of that perfection. The air of our capital, once fragrant with 1,000 perfumes, had grown heavy, cloying, thick with the scent of exhaustion masquerading as ecstasy. I remember standing on the balcony of my spire, watching the city unfold below like a living organism of light. The rivers of wraithbone pulsed with color, carrying the psychic energy of millions. Above, the domes gleamed like frozen suns, refracting the brilliance of our civilization into a spectrum so vivid it hurt to look at. The streets were alive with celebration. Dancers, courtiers, poets, lovers entwined beneath hovering banners of living flame. To any outsider, if such things still existed, it would have seemed divine. But to me, it was suffocating. Every gesture, every smile, every breath was rehearsed. The joy of my people had become mechanical, reflexive. An endless ritual performed to silence the growing emptiness within. They no longer sought pleasure for its own sake, but to drown the silence that had begun to seep through the cracks of their souls. They did not notice how that silence stared back at them. When the first whispers of the craft worlds reached the capital, the idea was met with ridicule. Immense world ships, self-sustaining sanctuaries meant to preserve the old ways. A place for those who feared what we had become. They called them arks for the broken, the vessels of the fearful, the weak, but I envied them. I remember visiting the docks in secret, the air humming with the deep resonance of wraithbone being grown into structure. The ships were unlike anything we had built before, vast cathedral-like, alive in their own right. Their hulls glowed faintly, not with vanity, but with serenity. They felt quiet, and after so long drowning in the endless symphony of our cities, that quiet terrified me and called to me. The seer, who oversaw the construction, greeted me with the solemn grace of one already half removed from the material world. Her eyes were dim, not from weakness but from focus turned inward. "You hear it too, don't you?" she asked. I said nothing. She smiled. "The hum beneath the stars. The heartbeat that isn't yours. Her words struck me like a confession I had not known I was waiting to hear. That night, I walked through the capital for the last time. I passed the pleasure domes, where the air quivered with laughter that no longer sounded human. I passed the shrines where once we had meditated upon the purity of thought, now converted into theaters of sensation, where emotion itself was worshipped as deity. The walls trembled with psychic resonance. The very stone seemed to breathe with desire. I saw a man kneel before a statue carved in his own image and kiss its feet. No one found it strange. As I moved deeper into the city, the hum of the warp grew stronger, pressing against the veil like a storm. The night sky rippled, a faint shimmer of color too vivid to belong to real space. Even the stars seemed restless, trembling in their constellations. And somewhere far beyond the edge of perception, I heard that word again. More. I ran. Not from danger, but from the realization that there was no longer a line between creation and corruption, that the God we were birthing was already stirring. And it was fed by every heartbeat, every sigh of pleasure, every act of arrogance that called itself art. When I reached the docking spires, I was not alone. Others were there, the silent, the fearful, the few who still remembered what restraint meant. They looked as I felt, lost, ashamed, uncertain if leaving was salvation or treason. Some clutched their spirit stones as if they were holding on to their own fading sanity. The departure was not grand. There were no banners, no songs of farewell. The city did not even notice us leave. Why would it? The revelry never stopped. The Empire danced as we vanished into the dark, too consumed by its own ecstasy to care. As the ship pulled away, I stood at the viewing deck and watched the capital recede, a world of light and madness shrinking into a distant, trembling star. The psychic tide swelled around us, and for a moment I thought I heard the entire planet singing. A low, resonant moan that was both beautiful and horrifying. The seer beside me whispered, "They do not know what they are singing to." I did not answer. My eyes burned with tears that I could not explain. Perhaps they were for the home I had lost. Perhaps for the souls that would never awaken from their dream, when the warp currents finally enveloped the craft world. The light of our capital flickered once, a pulse, faint and distant, then vanished. Silence filled the void, and within that silence, I felt the hunger again. Fainter, but still there. Always there. We told ourselves that we had escaped. That distance could protect us from what was to come. But deep down, every Eldar aboard knew the truth that none dared to speak. We were not fleeing the darkness. We were carrying it with us.